Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar Break Up with Excel, Zoho Creator, your next step to an uber productive business. A little about myself, your host for the session. I'm Nishevita Ramamurthy, a marketing analyst with Zoho Creator. I deal with all the Excel related stuff in my team and I help our customers migrate from Excel to Zoho Creator. Without much ado, let's quickly look at the agenda for today. So here's the agenda. We'll start with why you need to break up with Excel, move on to what are database apps and why you should move to them, what is Zoho Creator, the advantages of database over spreadsheets that is Excel, advantages of online databases over on-premise ones, online database apps in business, and finally, this is probably why most of you signed up for this webinar. I'll be showing you how you can convert your Excel sheets into a Zoho Creator application in minutes and also use it. Then we'll move on to advantages of Zoho Creator over other online databases and finally we'll have the Q&A session. Now, into the webinar. Break up with Excel. What was your reaction when you first read this phrase? Anger? Shock? Consternation? Feelings of how dare they ask me to break up with something that I grew up with? While your indignation is justified, you've got to admit that, beloved as they are, Excel is not the best bet when dealing with the harsh realities of business. But why? Because Excel doesn't work by itself. You have to make it do. Be it a calculation, a report, sending an email, or a status update, you have to push a button each time you do something. True, Excel is excellent for personal use or for use within teams, but that's about the end of its scope. Using it between teams or on an organizational level can be a productivity killer. Excel is not a database. A database is a database. What I mean by this riddle is that Excel should not be used as a database. You cannot model your business on it, use it to collaborate with your peers, or store confidential data in it. What happens when you do is that you end up spending more time working on your Excel sheet rather than for your business, and all for naught. But first, what are database apps and why use database apps? Take the apps that you use every day: WhatsApp, Uber, Amazon, and so on. What is common among them? They all have a database or a database management system in the backend. Note, database and not Excel. So that makes them database apps. And we all know how indispensable they are to our lives. Just like these personal apps make your everyday life easier, business apps take care of the everyday busy work. They make time for you to focus on the human side of business, like strategizing, interacting with clients, and such. Now, moving on to the product I represent, which is Zoho Creator. So, let's see what Zoho Creator is. It is a database application that's online and runs on low code. What is low code? It means you can create custom apps from scratch or by importing data from your existing source without having to code a single line. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? Now, here are the advantages of databases over spreadsheets, especially Excel. The ability to handle huge data without slowing down. Now, when you overload Excel with data, it just crashes, and all you get for your efforts is a dialog box that says Microsoft Excel has stopped working, Windows is looking for a solution to this problem. This doesn't happen with database. How much ever you load your database with data, it doesn't crash, it remains just as stable as it was when you started. Centralized data storage. In Excel, when you are to share data, you send your workbooks across as email attachments. Your colleagues then download those attachments and end up creating their own copies or versions. In the end, the data gets scattered across so many copies, leading to misuse, intended or unintended, and finally, untold chaos. In a database, everything is centralized. How many ever users there are, there is just one database for them all. This way, data is contained, thereby eliminating unnecessary versioning and averting possible misuse. And databases are hugely scalable. So when your company grows, the number of Excel sheets grows in proportion, and you may find all your vital data buried deep within all those sheets. While a database grows in size but not in number, whether your organization has 100 or 10,000 employees, you can run it on just a single database. That is how scalable it is. Now the advantages of online database over on-premise ones. So you have multi-user access, automatic data backups and version control, file sharing without dozens of emails, and zero installation cost, reduced maintenance and upgrade troubles. Since online databases work on the cloud, you don't have to shell out any money for server hardware or upgrade or maintenance. Everything is taken care of by us in the backend. Now, to the most exciting part of the webinar, the demo. Turn your Excel sheets into a Zoho Creator app in minutes. Let's go get those sheets. I have here with me an Excel workbook that has the orders and sales for some customers who are spread across the US. So here I have some sheets with me inside this Excel workbook, the master sheet that has all the IDs, the order ID, customer ID, product ID, and so on, and the customer details with the customer name, email address, the segment they belong to, are the consumers, corporates, home office, and product details with the product name, category, subcategory, so on, the sales rep names with the region each sales rep represents, and the order status to know the status of the orders placed by the customers, whether the orders have been delivered or are they still pending. So I have here then my Zoho Creator dashboard open. So you can see here number of applications that I've previously created or could have downloaded from the app deck. And here on top you see two options. So one is create a new application from scratch and the other is to import a file. So when I click this create new application, I can create an app from the scratch. I can create all the forms and reports all by myself, but that's not what we'll be doing today. So today we are going to import a file. So I am going to choose a file from my computer, this very same orders and sales Excel workbook. So you see here I've been taken to the sheet to app interface where I can see a preview of my application before the actual application gets created. So in here you see that each sheet in Excel here has been converted into a table. So you have a table for sales rep, for customer details, for master sheet, and so on. And also you see here that there are two views. One is the tabular view and the other is the lookup which we are on right now. So let's go to the tabular view. So here you see that all the column names in our Excel sheet have been translated into field names. So in the master sheet, the order ID, order date, customer ID, so on have become order ID, order date, and customer ID exactly the same, except that they are no longer called order names, the column names, but are field names. So you can change your field names here. You can do whatever edit you want to your data here, your data and your headers here. And you can change the field types too based on the type of data you have. Variety of field types like single line for text, number, decimal, and so on. So let's try changing one of those field types. So you see here email address is a single line here. Now the customer email address is a single line. So that I'm now going to change to an email ID field. So this email address is a specialized field for collecting email IDs. So let's see how it works once we go into the app. Now let's go to the lookup here. So the lookup workspace is where relationships are established between the different sheets or tables. So you can see here that Zoho Creator has already created some lookups for us by relating certain tables. So you can either keep these lookups or delete them and create ones on your own. So let's see here. I have a lookup for region which I don't need, one for region again that I'm deleting. So my customer ID and customer details has been mapped to that in the master sheet, which is a required one. And then I want my order ID in the master sheet to be mapped to the order ID here in the order status. It should be the other way around. Okay, so that's done. And I also want my product ID from the master sheet to be mapped to my product details. Look up here. So that's done. I think we have covered almost everything, and now our application is good enough to be created. So I'm just going to go ahead and click create application. So now all our records are getting imported, like the app shell has been created and now the record import is taking place. That is, our actual data from Excel is being imported into Creator. So you see an application has been created with 3 failures. Alright, so we changed field email address in our customer details form to an email ID type, a field that accepts only email addresses, valid email addresses. Creator here is now showing us the invalid entry, which is an email address with a space in between. That's how intuitive Creator is. It recognizes when the data you've entered is wrong and it points you out like, please correct this data. So we'll ignore that for now and just click access application. And voila, our application has been created. So you see that each sheet in our Excel has been created into a module in Zoho Creator. So for the master sheet, you have a master sheet report. And as you can see here, Zoho Creator has created a form for us where we can enter the data. So that was missing in Excel. Excel has no forms, but Creator has automatically created a form for us. So the same for customer details. We have a customer details report and a form, product details report and form, sales rep report and form, and order status report and form. Now, let's see how each activity in Excel is made so much simpler and much more efficient with Creator. First on, we have the UX. Alright, so in Excel, the UX is just a sea of cells with very minimum structure. The data in Excel has very rudimentary or basic structure. So the rows and columns are continuous, and while this arrangement seems fairly simple, it's only when your operations get a little more complicated that you start feeling the need for structure. So let's take a search operation for example. Say I want to find out how many orders were placed after, say, some date in February 2015. So you have your order date here, and this is the sheet that contains the pertinent data. And also, I want to find those details for just the West region and not for all the other regions. So here our search has to satisfy two criteria. One is the date criteria and the other is the region criteria. In Excel, with conditional formatting with which you usually define criteria and rules, you can fix only one criteria at a time. So you can search with either the region or the date, but not with both. While in Creator, you have something called custom filters with which you can search your data with as many criteria as you want. I'm going to show you how custom filters work now. Edit this application, and so I'm opening report properties here. In this space here, you can see an option called custom filters, which is what I'm choosing. Add custom filter. So let me just keep the name simple and name it as filter. Select field. So we are going to sort our data first by the order date. So order date is after. We need a date in the year 2015. So let's say 18th Feb. And I want another criteria, and the region here equals West. So with that, our custom function has been created. Let's click create. You can see our filter here. Done. Access this application. And you see that next to the report's name, you can find a down arrow. So when you click that, all the filters that you created will get displayed here. So you can choose whichever filter you want to be applied to your data, right now. I am choosing the filter we just created. So you see here that all records that have been entered after 18 Feb 2015, which is the date criteria we chose, are displayed, and also only for the West region. So from this, I can find the status of my orders, whether they are pending or delivered. So that's how powerful structure makes data. You can do any operation on it, simple or complex, provided your data has some structure. Now, moving on to the next, data entry and validation. So in Excel, data entry and storage happen at the same place, the cells, and at the same time. So any error that's made during entry creeps into the storage part too. Most of the operations are done after data is stored, so the error on entry creeps into those operations too and wreaks havoc on your processes. So let me give you an example instead of just rambling on and on. Say you've written a macro in Excel for fetching mail IDs every time they are entered and you've synced it with Outlook. So, in case an employee enters a mail ID in the wrong format, like the case we saw when we were importing data, so you have here a mail ID with space between the two words. So, in this case, the entire thing gets disrupted. This thing just doesn't happen at all. So, that's because Excel doesn't check for errors in data entry while data is being entered. So Excel recognizes this format as being correct, that you can have spaces between the mail ID, but only in the future, only when you start doing some serious operations on your data, that you come to realize the importance of validation. So in Zoho Creator, you have forms to enter data. So here we have a field email address, so this accepts only valid email ID. So if I try entering an invalid one, like that one which had a space there, so if I try submitting this, I get an error here: enter a valid email address for email address. So what this means is that this particular email address field has a rule running in the background even without the user having to define it. A set of rules that say, okay, when a data is entered into this field, this data has to satisfy this, and this criteria. And you didn't even set that. Zoho Creator did that for you. So now when I remove the space, so Zoho Creator offers a wide it is right. So your data gets added easily. Now let's move to data validation. So in Excel, validation is an afterthought. You may or may not apply the rules. The effects of not doing are, like most others, felt only in the long term. So, for example, in the master sheet, you have your order dates here. At first glance, all these dates seem to be in the DDMMYY format. You have 8, 11, 16, 11, 10, 16 and all. But a closer look at this column reveals that in the fourth cell, you have a format which is 5, 31, 14. Now, I don't think the calendar has any 31st month in it. So this one particular data alone is in the MMDDYY format. So the person who entered this data might not have noticed the other format, or he might have been in a hurry or something, but you see a glaring discrepancy right here. Now, say I apply a validation rule now after data has been entered, format cells, and I choose the DDMMYY format, click OK. And you see here that the format here is still in the MMDDYY format. It's still erroneous. Excel hasn't recognized that there's something amiss in this format. So you can see the amount of inconsistency that's probable while entering data in Excel. This is because data entry in Excel is purely left to the user's discretion. So any user can enter data of any type and Excel does nothing to check it. Let's see how it works in Zoho Creator. So I have the same master sheet here. The form, the order date is a single line here. So I am going to edit this application and change the field type from single line to the date. Open form builder. So this is the space where you build forms. So all you have to do here to build forms is drag and drop whichever field you want and form gets created just like that. So what I'm doing here is I am deleting this and replacing it with a date field. So on the side you can see your field properties. So this is the date field, fielding name. You can make it mandatory if you want. And the initial value is TDMMMYYY. So Zoho Creator has initialized that value for us. Show the field to everyone. So that's done. And let me access the application. Okay, so you see here that now when I click this calendar icon, I have a calendar popping up for me. So all I have to do is pick a date from here and submit instead of having to type the whole thing manually. So aside from removing the inconsistencies in data and making sure that data is entirely consistent, this also reduces the manual labor involved in typing. Okay, so we have seen enough of that. Let's go to the next one, which is data loss. Okay, so in Excel, before you close an application, you get this dialog box saying, do you want to save the changes made to the document orders and sales? Your changes will be lost if you don't save them. So if you accidentally click don't save because you were distracted or something, all your hours of work until from the time you last saved your sheet to the time when you close it would be wiped out in an instant. The same thing happens when your desktop faces a power outage or when your laptop runs out of charge or well when your Excel just decides to crash, which is quite often. So in Zoho Creator, all your data is online. So every change you make is saved just as you make it. So when you open your application after maybe a shutdown or any other accident or a deliberate action, you can pick up your work right from where you left off. And also when you close your application, you don't have to worry after you close your application, you don't have to worry about whether you click Control S or Command S because Zoho Creator does that for you. It automatically saves your data. Now over to the next one, which is data relationships and integrity. So one of the major pain points in Excel. Okay, let me just cancel because we don't want to close our Excel when it's working perfectly. I'm sure this Excel sheet must look neat to a lot of people, right? Okay, so that's because I spent a lot of time making it look this way for the purposes of this webinar. And believe me, I don't think you'd want to see the original sheet because it's absolutely messy. Okay, now over to data relationships and integrity. Okay, so in Excel, there are two ways you can create relationships between sheets or between tables. So one is just plain copy pasting that causes undue strain on your fingers, or the other is VLOOKUP that requires so much concentration while creating that it could give you a headache. Now, both these measures are extremely susceptible to errors and also lead to a lot of data duplication. So, now let me give you an example once again. I have my master sheet here. So, say suppose I want to get my product name and category to be displayed on the master sheet. So, for this involves the following steps. First, I'll have to insert a column, name it product name. Next comes our world famous VLOOKUP, formulas, lookup and reference, insert. So the lookup value here is the product ID. So based on this, I'll be fetching the product name from the other sheet, which is the product details sheet. And the table array is, let me just choose this whole thing, the first and the second columns of the sheet. Drag and drop again. Okay, so something went wrong here. I guess I forgot to click this one. One click here. Product details. Start the selection again. Alright, then the column index number here is 2, and since I want the exact match for my product ID, it's false. So done. You see one has been populated here. I just drag and drop this whole thing down. And despite having returned the VLOOKUP formula correct, you can see a value not found error here. So nobody knows why this is here, neither me nor Excel nor you, I guess. So the errors go on increasing. So you'll have to again go check if there's something wrong with your formula or your data. A lot of work. Now, how does Zoho Creator make creating data relationships easier? Simple, by doing it for you. So in Excel, we use lookup to fetch product name and category in the master sheet with product ID. In Zoho Creator, without using any formula or any additional step, we are going to get product name and category displayed in our master sheets report. So let's see how. So here I have my form builder for the master sheet form open, and you can see that under the field properties here there's a property called display fields. So this property shows the relationship that we have created for product ID, mapping it to the product details form. And this drop down here shows which data is displayed in the product ID field. So right now it's just the product ID that's displayed in the product ID field, but we can get this field to display whatever data we want from the product details form, like product name and category, which we are going to do now. So select the product name and category. So you see that with the primary key, which is product ID, this key field functions as the key between the master sheet form and the product details form. So with this common attribute, we can fetch whatever data is there in the looked up field, which is the product details field, and get them to be displayed in this form and report. Let's click done, access the application. So you can see that in the options present in the drop down, along with the product ID, you have the product name and category too. So let me just select one and submit. So in the report also, you can see all the three fields being displayed: the product ID, name, and category. So to bring this about, we did practically nothing. All we did was just choose the fields to be displayed in the lookup field, which is the product ID field, and Zoho Creator neatly created the relationship for us and brought us whichever fields we wanted to be displayed into this report. So that's how easy it is creating relationships in Zoho Creator. Where does integrity come in with data relationships? Let's see. So in customer details here, you have the state that's entered, which state each customer belongs to. You have Kentucky, and right next to it you have California. No, the spelling it's California and not California. Probably the person was in a hurry to get home when she typed this. Florida, California again, and here you see some states have their abbreviated forms entered. So obviously the employees were in a great hurry to get home. So for Kentucky it's KY, for California it's CA. You can see the amount of inconsistency this data has given rise to. So again, as I stated earlier, data entry is purely left to the user's discretion, so they can enter data any way they want based on their whims and fancies. So it's only the user, it's only the final person who gets to view this data or to operate on this data who faces all the imbroglios and data inconsistency. So how does having lookups or relationships avoid that? So for that, in the customer details form, you have a drop down here for state. So since we have imported data from Excel, there's inconsistency in the drop down too. So to eliminate that, what I'm going to do is create a separate form that has only the state names in it. I'm going to create something like a master list for all the states. So and I'm going to use that as a lookup to this form. So the user has no choice but to choose from the options that I've listed in the master list. So this is how you create new components to your in your application. You have a form here, report, page, and workflow. So now we are creating a form, and you can either have it blank, give it your own design, your own spin, or import with data, which we just did. Or Zoho Creator offers you some predefined templates, for commonly done operations like invoicing, expenses, inventory, and so on. You can choose from these templates, and you have integrations too, which is another entirely different and exciting story altogether. For now, we are going with the blank form, and I am naming this states. Create form. So I am dragging and dropping a single line field here that is going to serve as our states field. Access the application. I'm just going to go ahead and enter all the state names. So since this is only an example, I won't be entering all the states in the United States. I'll just be entering a few states to show you how it works. I have a master list here now with some 5 states, and now I'm going to go ahead and use this as a lookup to our customer's detail form here. Edit this application, open form builder. Alright, so you see here that since this is a drop down, you have all the options, choices in the drop down listed down here. So you can make the changes right here. You don't even have to create a master list or a lookup. So you can just remove all the abbreviations here to make them free of them. Remove this longly spelled California too. So you can do the cleanup this way, but since my intention now is to show how lookups are created inside a form, you'll have to bear with me and stay with me while I show you how lookups are created. So I am removing this, I am deleting the drop down here and dragging and dropping a lookup field instead. So as soon as I drag and drop a lookup field into my workspace, Zoho Creator displays all the applications that I have with me here. So the application we are on is the orders and sales 11. Next to that is the forms or the modules in that application. So we are choosing the states, and once I do that, it shows all the fields in that particular form. So the state is the field that's visible to the user, while at a time ID and all the rest are invisible fields for more use to creator than to the user. I choose state here. Done. Access this application. Okay, a drop down has been created for me with values from our states form. So any user who's on this form has no choice but to choose the options that are given in this form. They cannot enter any value on their own. So any user from anywhere he or she accesses it, this is the standard set of data they can choose from. So this is how integrity is maintained with relationships in Zoho Creator. Alright, so now moving on to the next, which is data security. So I don't think I have to stress on of what paramount importance data security is to every organization. Every company, every organization out there intends to keep their customer details, their employee details, all such confidential stuff as tightly secure as possible. Now, you say you store all your data in Excel. So, what does Excel have to offer by the way of security? All it does is offer you some password protection. So, this password protection is so fickle that it can be broken in by even an amateur hacker. And you can maybe hide cells or freeze cells or do whatever, but all that turns to dust when your user downloads your Excel sheet in the form of a PDF or a CSV file. So in that case, all the cells that you've hidden become visible in any way, in any case. So how does Zoho Creator keep data safe? Let's go to the application. So here I again have my master sheets form builder open, and under the field properties you can see some options like data privacy and data security. So suppose I want my sales details to remain purely confidential. I want it to be visible only to me and to none of my collaborators. So I can check this box that says contains personal data. So this hides this field and all the data in this field from all my collaborators when I share the app or report with them. So even if they try downloading the report or exporting it, under no circumstance would they be able to view this data. Moving on to the data security property here. So under this we have something called encrypt data. So let's say I want my salespersons to see only their profit and not the colleague's profit, not each other's profit. So in that case, I can choose this field to be encrypted. Zoho Creator is showing us a warning here. Let's accept that. So what happens here is that data in this particular field is converted into a non-readable form with a key, and only those with the decryption key can click this field and view the data that's there. So for each data, the encryption key is different. So in this case, each salesperson will be given a unique decryption key with which they can decrypt only their data. So in this way, the sales reps can view only their data and not their colleagues. So that's how decryption works in Creator, encryption and decryption. So with this, I hope you are rest assured that all your confidential data and sensitive client information are in safe hands with Zoho Creator. So you can see that now it's been encrypted. It's done. Now moving on to the next, which is reporting. Excel does offer some powerful reporting options like pivot chart and pivot table, but however, their scope is limited. Sure, they're extremely useful when it comes to business forecast or when dealing with number crunching and any other operation related to numbers. But when it comes to real world operations, their scope is extremely limited. So here I have a pivot table that I created with our customer details. The row I used here is the customer ID, and the filter that I used to filter our data by is the state. So you see, this is how it works. Pivot works. And I can see only three states here for some reason. All right. So you see, pivot table is nothing but a slightly nicer way of viewing data than in the original sheet. So here you have so much data, so much rows upon rows of data. Well, here the view is comparatively neat, and yeah, you can apply filter and sort your data and stuff, but that's about the scope of reports of pivot charts and tables in Excel. So, how different is Zoho Creator? So, Zoho Creator offers a wide variety of reporting options, like you can see that for yourself. Add new report, like list report, pivot chart, and table. List report is the one, is the normal view that we just saw on it on Zoho Creator. Pivot chart and pivot table and spreadsheet view for those who are extremely too attached to their spreadsheets to leave it away entirely. Kanban view, which we'll be using now. Calendar view for events or anything that involves dates, and timeline view for pretty much the same. And map, so you can view all your locations, like your delivery address or your customer locations on beautifully drawn map reports, just like maybe in Google Maps. And when you click the pointer, all the details get displayed. So that's how it works. Let's create a Kanban report now based on the form customer details, group column by, let me do it by the segment maybe. Whether they belong to the consumers or corporate or whatever. I'm naming this customer segment. So I believe our report is got created now. Access this application. Okay, so you see here how neatly Creator has grouped all our data under the criteria which we chose, which is the segment. So under the consumer segment, you find a list of data, corporate segment more, home office, and so on, each with the customer ID and the customer name on it. So just see how neat the whole thing looks. And you can customize the view to any way you want, instead of if you don't want what the custom ID to be displayed. You can remove it and show just the name alone. So the options are entirely left to you. And you can also create dashboards in Creator. So what you do in dashboards is that you just pull reports from various modules and display them all on a single page. And you can stylize them with buttons and widgets and slicers and dicers. So just imagine having 5 reports on the same page that you can compare and contrast and analyze in an instant. Sounds good, right? Okay, now to the next one, that is sharing and collaboration, which is another major pain point in Excel. So in Excel, the only way you can share and collaborate is by email attachments. So you email the book to your colleagues, they download it, they make their own changes, they mail it back to you, you merge those changes to your original workbook, and after all this, at the end of the day, you have some 100 copies of the same book doing the rounds. And apart from creating the one true version issue, it also leads to serious lapses in safety. Because in Excel, when you share a workbook, you share everything in it. You share all the sheets in that workbook. Say, for example, I have an inventory manager in my organization and I want her to view only my product details and not the customer details. However, when you send the sheet to her as an email attachment, she'll inevitably get to view the customer details too, whether you want her to or not. So, how does sharing work in Zoho Creator? In Zoho Creator, you can assign roles and permissions to your collaborators. So, the first of all, the sharing is online, so you don't need to depend on any third party services like email or SharePoint or OneDrive. And you can also limit what your collaborators can see and do. So you can make just specific forms and reports or even fields in those specific forms and reports accessible to certain people, and you can hide the rest. So let's see how it works, how sharing works in Zoho Creator. Again, let me edit this application. Okay, so I am going to settings here, users. So I have a dummy email address that I created just for the purpose of the webinar. Let me enter the dummy address. So right now the permission given by default here is read, but I want to assign my own permissions. Here's what I do. So the name for this profile is inventory manager, and I want my inventory manager to view, access, edit only this module. So more, I can give her permissions to import the data, export it, view all, modify all, and I can give field level permissions too. Say I don't want her to see the subcategory, I can take the visibility off it and done. So save and associate and share. So this module in the inventory module in our application has been shared with our inventory manager. So this is where you can view the permissions you've assigned to various peoples and the roles you've assigned. Add roles too, so I can make my inventory manager report to the CEO stuff. So let's just go check the mail ID given there. Okay, so this dummy email ID has received the invitation to access the application. So you see here only this module, this product details module has been shared with my inventory manager. And even in this report, you see here that the subcategory hasn't been shared because we unchecked that when we unchecked that field, visibility when we were to share it with the inventory manager. So this is how secure and easy sharing is in Zoho Creator. With roles and permissions, granular access control over data, you can ensure that your data never falls into the wrong hands and only relevant people get to see whatever is relevant to them in terms of data. Now let's go to next part, which is automation. Okay, so for this, I think I might as well go directly to the sheet. So let's take this order status sheet in Excel. So every time you can see the order statuses here have been entered already. So every time any order that's pending gets delivered, you have to go to the sheet and manually change the order status yourself. So same thing happens when a new order is entered. So whatever happens, all that has to be done manually. Sure, you could maybe try writing macros for it, but macros, I'm not sure if it's worth all the headache or the complication that goes into creating macros. Just imagine the amount of time you've got to spend in doing this, updating statuses. And if you have got to send emails to your customers informing them of their order status, so you have to go associate the email ID with their order ID and draft individual emails. You have to check the status of the order here, and based on that, you need to draft an email to each of your customers. Too much work, isn't it? How does Creator automate the whole thing? So, for this, I'm going to introduce you to something called custom action. So, what I'm going to do is include a custom action in our report so that when I click that button, the custom action here is a button, my status gets updated automatically, and not just that, a mail gets triggered to the customers too, all automatically informing them about the status of their orders. So let's go about creating that custom application, custom function here. I go to actions for single record. It's going to be pending. So I'm going to add a new action here. So what we are going to do is when we click the pending button, we want the mail to be triggered to our customers, informing them of their order status. So we have a number of options here like send email, send SMS on mobile, send push notification, show a success message, redirect to URL. You can do any of these. What we are doing now is send email. So I am sending a mail from the admin's email address to the logged in user's email address. That could be your customers or your employees, anybody who's logged into Creator. So object is going to be your order status, and my message is hi. So I can even customize my mails without having to write my customer ID here. So I can choose my customer ID. So when the customer opens their mail, they'll get their ID displayed. Hi, customer ID. If you have a name field in your form, you can choose name too. So you don't have to enter customer ID or the order ID for each of the mails. You can just automate it here by choosing from the fields. Order ID. This is pending for delivery. It will be delivered to you shortly. Some short message. Let's keep it brief. Cheers. Save. That's done. So now we need to bring our button into the report, for which I'm going to configure the fields for web and add fields. Pending is the button we created. Add it. So I hope it's got saved. Access the application. Okay, so you see here we have some buttons created for us. So when I just click this button, a mail gets triggered to the customer who placed the order. So since I've sent the mail to my own mail ID, let's see if I got a mail. So here's me receiving a mail with my customer ID and my order ID saying it'll be delivered to me shortly. So with just some 2 steps we have saved with Creator probably something that would have taken some 3 hours to do on Excel. Again, I'm just throwing hours randomly to update statuses and send customer emails. So that is the power of automation in Creator. Alright, so with this, I think we have come to the end of our feature comparison, and now let's look at the advantages of Zoho Creator over other online databases. So now we can relate these points to all that we saw in the demo. So one is low code app development. So you just saw how easy automating processes was in Creator, with just some three lines of code and with some dragging and dropping here, you could automate even the most complicated processes with Zoho Creator. And also fully customizable native mobile apps. So this is something that makes Zoho Creator stand out from other online database services. So here, every app that you create on the web becomes automatically available as a mobile app. You don't have to put any extra effort into it. You don't have to create an app from scratch for mobile or, do anything for that matter. As soon as you create an app on the web, you get an app on your mobile too, and on both iOS, Android, and in your tablet, whatever it may be. And these apps are native, so this means you can use your mobile's hardware like camera or audio, enter data to your applications or perform operations there. And we also have some niche mobile features like QR and barcode scanning, geofencing, geolocation, and so on. So there's a whole new world out there for you to explore. And we have white labeling and customer portal. So what customer portal is that customers get their own space that they can log into and access. It's something similar to what happens when you log into Amazon or Uber. So you have an email ID, you have a password for it, and when you log in, you see your rides in case of Uber or some deals that have been specially crafted for you in Amazon. So that's the way customer portal works in Zoho Creator too. You log into your customer portal, you see all the information that's pertinent to you, alerts, future events, and so on. So white labeling is where you rebrand your app to that of your organizations. What you can do is you can replace the Zoho Creator logo or the Zoho Creator domain with your organization's logo and domain. So the app looks like it's been made for your organization by your organization. You need not see Zoho Creator. There's no sign of Zoho Creator anywhere in that app. So that is white labeling. And next, granular access controls. You just saw how useful or how powerful they are in Zoho Creator. You or rather the admin can control who gets to see what, and thereby ensuring complete safety of your data and spectacular reports and dashboards, which too we saw. Okay, so I hope this webinar tempted you enough for you to go and try out a Zoho Creator application now. Import your Excel sheet to create a Zoho Creator application. So if you are, you can sign up at this URL https www.zoho.com, create a breakup with Excel. So once you sign up, you just go ahead after upload your sheets and get a Zoho Creator app. Okay, so now it's time for the question and answer sessions. So if anybody out there has any questions, you can either raise your hands or you can type your questions in the question and answer. And okay, so I already have some questions here. Okay, custom actions. Can you choose multiple emails at once? Would you create a workflow for each? So no, you can. Yes, you can choose multiple emails. Must be a yes. Yes, you can choose multiple emails or even email groups at once. You don't have to create separate workflows. So I hope that answers your question. And any limit on the number of apps I can create? Okay, yes, there is a limit on the number of apps that you can create. So you can view all those details in our pricing plan. So you can just go to Zoho Creator pricing and see our pricing plans here. So let me just send you this link. Send to all. So this is our pricing page. Can I have image files added to form, mobile image taken to a field? Of course you can do that. So when you go to a mobile application, you can make use of your camera to just capture images on the spot and add it to your form. So that's possible in Creator. Native mobile app. How do I download the app and add it to my devices? Okay, so you can either go to the Google Play Store or your App Store and install Zoho Creator into your mobile, and with that you can access all the apps that you have on your web on mobile too, native apps again. So any data limits for creator ads? Yes, that again depends on the pricing plan that you choose. So you can check out our pricing page for more details. Or if you have more questions, you can drop in an email at ask at zohocreator.com and get all your queries answered. Okay, so I think uh, that's an end to our Q&A session. If you have any questions, you can drop us an email at breakupwithexcel@zohocorp.com. We'll be happy to answer any question you have at any time. Thank you so much for being here today. Have a good day.